We're going to start this chapter. This is one of my favorite chapters, the stress and health chapter. And the reason why this is one of my favorites is because I feel like it can make such a powerful impact on your life. I feel like this information is so relatable to everyone. So, the way that I start this lecture is I walk into class and I'm like, okay, class, so what does success mean to you? What do you need to have in order to feel successful? And this is usually what I get. I need a good career. I need a career where I feel valuable. I need to make a certain income. I want to have a certain standard of living. I want to have a good, solid relationship. I want to have a strong family. I want to make a difference. I want to have a life where I feel that I'm designing it. So these are all the things that people tell me about success, and I'm with them. I like all of those ideas. Is we need to have a certain amount of money, we need to have good relationships, we need to have a sense of freedom, we need to have a sense of purpose, we need to have a life that we design. But then what I talk about is I'm like, and what will stop you from getting all that? And I think what stops us from getting all that is stress. And if we can't manage our stress well, then ultimately what it's going to do is it's going to affect our health. So basically, the bottom substance of who we are is how healthy we are and how much energy we have. How much energy, how much focus can we devote towards creating the life that we want? And what stops us is our inability to manage our stress and to maintain our health. And so that's why I think that this chapter is so amazing. Like, the better you get at focusing your energy on what you want in life and having and using the energy to get what you want in life, the more successful that you'll be. So, the underlying of our energy is our health. So what we're going to start with is how stress affects your health. So I want to talk about this concept called a psychophysiological illness. And so what a psychophysiological illness is it's a real physical illness caused by psychological factors. It's a real physical illness that's caused by psychological factors. So, what we're going to do in this portion of the lecture is we're going to look at the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, and the psychophysiological illness. So, last chapter we learned about the sympathetic and parasympathetic. We found out that they were parts of the autonomic nervous system, so they control all of our glands and organs. And so, the sympathetic it's designed to give you lots of energy when you're under stress. And then the parasympathetic is designed to just maintain you when you don't need that extra energy. And what the key is that we have to find the balance between the two. And we'll find out that our personality characteristics may determine different places where we can balance. So, what we're learning about here is we're going to look at the different organs and we're going to talk about this is how stress affects this organ. And these are the psychophysiological illnesses that can develop as a result of stress. So, again, it's a real physical illness caused by psychological factors. So, what percentage of illnesses do you think are caused by psychological factors? 70 to 90%. So they believe that 70 to 90% of our health problems are related to stress and maybe our inability to maintain ourselves under stress. So let's get started here. So I made this little graph. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill out this graph. So we're going to take each organ or behavior and we're going to see how does sympathetic activation affect it versus parasympathetic. And then we'll talk about the psychophysiological illnesses that are associated with it. And then after each kind of topic here, each I chose these because I have something interesting to say about each one of these, like a stress lesson that goes with each one of these. So we're going to start with the heart. So we know that the sympathetic nervous system is called the fight or flight nervous system, or I said stress nervous system. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is kind of back to normal. So when we get under stress, as you can imagine, our heart speeds up. So what you should be putting right here is speeds up. And then the parasympathetic nervous system would be more, the heart is more relaxed. It slows down at its regular pace. And then, I'm sure you know, the number one cause of death in the United States is heart disease. So we have the psychophysiological illnesses that are associated with the heart are heart disease, number one killer, and heart attack, and high blood pressure. But I want to share with you this concept. So I said we're going to take each organ and then I'm going to share with you an interesting concept that goes along with it. So we're filling in the graph and then I'm going to share the interesting concepts. So here's the interesting concept that I want to talk to you about with the heart. There's these terms, maybe you guys have heard of them before. They're called the type A personality and the type B personality. And how these terms, so a type A personality is a person that has a sense of time urgency, a chronic struggle to achieve more and more in less time, impatience, hostility towards others. Whereas a type B is more relaxed, laid back, less likely to put excessive pressure on themselves. So maybe you could think of the tortoise and the hare. The hare would be more of the type A, and the tortoise would be more of the type B. I call the type A as like the superhero personality. They get things done, and then the type B is more of the cool one. So I think that each one of these are good. They're different, but they're good. And sometimes I feel like, we need to balance each other out. So the type B has a tendency to look at the type A and say, "Oh my gosh, you're like a chicken with your head cut off. You're always pushing, pushing, pushing." And then the type A is looking at the type B and say, "Oh, you're not going to get anywhere. What are you doing?" But in the end, we're all going to die, right? So I don't know who's right. Is it better to live this slow, mellow life, or is it better to live a very focused life where you're accomplishing everything? And there's probably no answer to it, but each one of us has kind of a different personality. And a lot of us are probably in the middle. So this is something that summarizes the type A personality. You're an ambitious, proactive, and organized person, always in competition with yourself and others. You have a hostile side that is triggered by minor events. You can be extremely impatient, and you're a control freak that likes things done in a certain way. Although you can be short fused and obsessive, your achievement driven mentality helps you accomplish your goals and fulfill your dreams. You put just as much effort into your love life and familial relationships as you do into your workload, which makes you loyal and dependable. Your mind mostly uses logic and strategic thinking to solve problems and make decisions. You see the world in black and white and have a strong sense of morality. Whereas type B personality people are relaxed, easygoing people who rarely feel an urgency of time. If properly guided, these people can make wise decisions and normally be quite effective. They prove to be good leaders because their followers tend not to panic under stress, mirroring their leader. So neither one of these are necessarily better, except for I want to tell you how type A and type B personalities were actually discovered. They were discovered by a chair upholsterer, supposedly. So the story goes is there was this big medical building. So if you can imagine, like there's different floors, and on each different floor there's a different specialization. Like maybe the first floor is neurology, the second floor would be urology, the third floor would be cardiology, right? So you get all that. So there was this one guy that owned a company, and he was the chair upholstering company. And as he went and upholstered all the chairs, he noticed this weird thing. He noticed that on the cardiology floors, that the chairs wore out differently than all the other floors. So on the other floors, where the chair would wear out would be in the back of the seat where your butt is, and be the back of the seat and the elbows, right where the elbows rest on the chair. So if you guys can imagine sitting back in your chair, leaning against the back of it with your elbows, that's what would wear out. But he didn't find that on the cardiology floor. What he found on the cardiology floor was that the chairs would wear out on the edge of the seat. On the edge of the seat and on the edge of the arms. It seemed like people would pick at the edge of the arms and they would sit on the edge of their seats. And this is what would wear out. So this actually was discovered back in the 70s. And in the 70s, they didn't have cell phones. So I feel like the cell phone is probably everybody's best friend, but especially a type A personality. Is the type A's, they use their cell phones all the time because they're trying to do more and more in a smaller sense of time. So back in the 70s when you had to wait, then this would be terrible for them. So here's like a little 5-question test that I give people in class, just a simple little test. You guys can answer true and false to each one of these. 1, I tend to eat fast. 2, I tend to try to do more and more each day, multitasking constantly. 3, I tend to walk fast. 4, I absolutely hate waiting in lines or traffic. It makes me so upset. And number 5 is, one of the things that really bothers me is when someone goes on and doesn't get to the point. So some of you might feel more strongly towards those questions than others. I think most of us don't like to wait, and most of us do want people to get to the point. But it would depend on the degree that you're saying true to those. So if you said true to absolutely all of those, then I think you're a pretty strong type A. But if you said true to some of them, not to others, then maybe you're in the middle. And if you said false to absolutely all of them, then maybe you're a strong type B. So, and again, we can't say who's better, type A or type B. Type A probably makes lists of things to do every morning and they check them off and they push themselves constantly to surpass their previous goals. Whereas type B says, I'm going to enjoy my life. But there's one area where it's not good to be a type A. And the definition of this has changed a bit, and it brings us back full circle to this heart. Is the type A is sometimes considered to be the disease-prone personality. And especially, do you remember the story about the chair upholsterer? He found that on the cardiology floors. So people who were type A, they were saying were much more likely to get heart disease. But in follow-up studies, more like 2000 studies, they found that it wasn't so much this type A, this sense of type A is what I'm putting right here. They found that it was more like negative emotions. So people who tend to be, I tried to bold this right here, this hostility, people who tend to be hostile all the time, they're always angry. They're always kind of interpreting things as being negative. They were, I believe, 6 times more likely to suffer from heart disease. And they also found that with depression and mood disorders. So they're finding that really negative perceptions of things, negative feelings, tend to be more of the disease prone attributes rather than like maybe a workaholic. So type A's are usually considered a workaholic, setting goals. Oh, I want to get things done by here. If you're a type A, but you're always happy and you don't get upset if you don't meet your goals, you set the goals for yourself and you make competitions with yourself to push yourself, but you're mostly happy. I don't think the disease-prone personality is going to apply to you as well. But those of you who feel angry all the time or are feeling negative emotions all the time, I hope you'll think back to maybe the lecture that I gave on Vunt and perception. What is it that you're focusing on? And then we talked about that you can't think 2 thoughts at once. And that was something else. Are you focusing on the negative, or maybe you should focus on the positive? Okay, we're going to stop this here and we'll pick up the lungs next lecture.